Gabby here again from Endress Analytics with this week's Adobe tutorial, and this week I'm going to dive a little bit more into the back end of how tracking is set up. I won't be going into the real technical, the JavaScript, how all that is written. Instead, I'm going to show you how I provide a document that I personally call a tracking manifest. You'll also hear people in the industry call it a variable map, or from Adobe they'll often call it an SDR, or a solution design requirements document. And in either case, that document is provided to the developers for all custom tracking. If you don't do custom tracking, then all of the tracking that you will get will be sort of the out-of-the-box, the page views, unique visitors, visits, things like that, real basic tracking. But if you want any kind of custom tracking, like your page name, if you want like custom page names, if you want to get your custom tracking from your videos, your EVARs, your FRAPS, and I'm sorry, this is if you remember my tutorial from last week, I renamed things and rearranged things in my menu, and so typically your EVARs are called your custom conversions, and your custom traffic is your SPROPs, and I forgot to rename those back to what they're supposed to be, so just so you know what that looks like. And one of the things I'm going to be doing with my personal website, my business website by next year, is I'm actually planning on having it redesigned. And I'll take a quick peek. This is my website. I've mentioned it many times. We've looked at the data many times. This is my site right now. It is primarily blog-based. The whole homepage is all blog-based. I've got this this main thing up here where you can scroll through the top 5 or 4 most recent posts that I've done, and I actually haven't updated it in a while. The 2 most recent posts down here are also shown with a little bit more information, with then some additional posts here. I have an about page, a services page, a contact page, a blog page that gives you like just your standard blog interface. And then I also have a live chat that people can actually interact with me live on the site. I'm not on there all the time, but I do have a couple folks who kind of hang out there once in a while, and if you pop in there and have an analytics question or something, if they're available, they might be happy to help chat with you and answer some questions. So be that as it may, that's my site. It's pretty basic. I'm going to have it redesigned so that the blog kind of goes off of the home page and will live just under the blog section in the future and that kind of thing. So keeping that in mind, and keeping in mind how I want to go forward with this site, I have come up with my tracking manifest that will be incorporated with the redesign. The people that I'm going to be hiring to do the redesign, they're developers, and they can actually help me implement the tracking in the way I really ideally want the tracking to happen, including tracking videos and that kind of thing. So here is basically what the tracking manifest looks like. It's an Excel spreadsheet. I ended up having to do a PDF because the computer I record these tutorials on does not have Excel on it, so I apologize for that. But this is an Excel document that I just saved as a PDF. But it gives you a basic idea of the kind of information that I provide to a developer. First of all, here is the variable name, and I'll go through them in a little bit more detail in a moment. Then I have a column here that says what is it used for, and that's sort of, it's somewhat informational for the developer. I think that they find it useful to know why are we using this variable for, and for what purpose. But it's also when I go back and say, okay, why did I name it this, that kind of thing, or especially if I'm setting things up in the report suites, etc. I actually will refer to this information as well. Reports populated, so this actually will be informational not only to myself but any future analysts who come along, consultants that are hired, that kind of thing. So if I'm doing this for a client, not just for myself, but if I'm doing this for a client, once my engagement of the project is over with, there is this document that lives, and any future analysts who will work with the analytics for my client will have this as a reference, and they will have an understanding of both, like why are the variable name, what is it used for, how to get to the report that it's populating. And then for the developer, here is when and where to set. There is a setting example. And you'll notice here I have a lot of things in red. Anything in red in brackets is an indication to the developer, this is where you put your JavaScript. You need some JavaScript logic to populate this in whatever makes sense for that client. And the developers who have already developed their website, they will have a better understanding of how the site is set up to begin with, and therefore they'll have a better understanding of how to, what JavaScript or JSON or jQuery or, whatever solution that they want to go forward with in order to populate these things. And I'll go in a little bit more detail on that in a moment. And then here I have notes and things, and in some cases I will have some specifics in terms of, well, these are what the social share names should be, these are what the blog categories should be, etc. Not saying that they have to hard code anything to match this information, as much as they need to, that when they're writing their code, the results should match what's on this list for the most part. So kind of going into a little bit more detail. We have a couple of just standard high-level variables. One is the s.pagename. This is what is used to set the page name. If s.pagename is not set, then by default the page name report, which is found under Site Content Pages, will populate with the URL of the page. Point blank, that's it. And then you also have to be very careful, because just a lot of clients are now smart and they don't do this anymore. But I have still, every now and again, I run into a client who does this, where they will reuse the same name for multiple pages. And a lot of clients, what they'll do in order to set, and here in the setting examples, as page name equals whatever, and the code that they put in here, very often they'll just parse and grab their HTML title from the page. And if they use the exact same title on multiple pages, then all of the traffic for all those pages kind of gets concatenated together into a single piece of data. And so let's say you have 5 pages that all have the exact same page name. Let's say, for example, unknown page or default page. Whatever. Someone didn't go ahead and put in an HTML name properly within their scripts, or however they set up their site. And so all the traffic for those 5 different pages will come and populate this as page name. So if you are reporting by URL, you wouldn't run into that. However, on the flip side of that, if you report on the URL, it's not user-friendly. The developers will know, and some folks within the company will know, okay, this URL corresponds to this particular page. But a lot of people, especially at the executive level, may not know that, and so it's always better to have a user-friendly name. Whether you're using your HTML title or some other logic or schema within your code that populates this. Very often people will concatenate things. You may even parse the URL itself and concatenate, if you have a very logical order of your directories and subdirectories and things, and parse that into a user-friendly format to populate your page name. There's a number of ways that developers do this. I'm kind of, from a high level I'm familiar with that, but don't ask me to write the code for it, because that's just not, I am just not a developer. Alright, so that's page name, and I'm going to try and go more quickly through the rest of these. S.channel is for site sections, so, and that would be also set on all pages, and kind of give the channel name. And just to kind of briefly take a look at my website, my channels, or my site sections, would be the home page, about, services, contact, blog, chat. Those would be what I would expect to be delivered. And I didn't actually put a note in here, but that's something that I could have added for the developer is, channel names, the expected channel names. And again, you know, code logic to parse that based on most likely, if you're looking at my website and if I go to my About section, most likely they could parse it from the URL itself, is whatever is within the slashes immediately following the domain name, boom, that's your channel name. Would probably be the most logical way of doing that. Now the next set of variables are my events. And notice that I have some different color coding here. So anything that's in a light green are actually related to video tracking. So if I actually had videos that were embedded on my website, now I do have videos on my site, but they're embedded from YouTube, so I cannot currently use this kind of tracking. But if I actually went ahead and took my videos and uploaded them to my web server instead and embedded them that way, I could then also have a developer go into either the HTML5 code or the Flash action script, etc., and set some variables in there. And then the way I've got this organized is based off of the best practices from version 15 going forward of Site Catalyst, or now Reports and Analytics. And you always want to make sure that you have a start and a complete, video start, video complete events. It's optional if you want to kind of also have events in here that kind of track different milestones. In this case I have 25%, 50%, 75%. I don't need it any more than that. Other types of variables here is video time, video segment. These are all basically best practices, and there are a lot more details from Adobe and the Adobe documentation as to why to set things the way that they're set here, and I'm not going to go into that kind of detail right now. You can see here some of the information for the developer. You know, you want to have these set on all videos. Here you want to make sure that event 1 is set at the video start, and event 5 is set at when the video is complete. Just kind of automatically trigger that. Going on, I have another event here that is for exit links, and I have this for an s.tl function. S.tl is I'm not going to explain it in complete detail, but there's an s.t and an s.tl that can be used for a variety of things. And in this particular case, you want to do an s.tl because s.t functions are counted as page views. And so anytime you click through something that has an s.tl, you actually generate a page view. Whereas if you have an s.tl, it's not going to generate a page view. And I don't want every time someone clicks on an exit link from my page, from my site, to trigger a page view. It kind of doesn't make any sense since they're exiting the site. And then here there's a couple of different reports that get populated from that. I have event 8 that gets populated, and then there's also an exit links report in general. I just kind of want to report in both places. The event is incremental, so it just tells me I've had 20 exit links in this particular time frame. It doesn't tell me any more information than that, but that can be used in correlation with the EVARs and SPROPs and things, and we can go into that into more detail. I've already kind of covered in another tutorial the difference between events, EVARs, and SPROPs, and if anyone has any questions about how all of that kind of interrelates, let me know in the comments, and I can certainly go in, do a more in-depth tutorial on that. I just don't want these videos to get too long. But yes, so here I've got that for the exit links. And then, you know, there's a couple of different things that need to be set here. Is the s events equals event 8, and then also the s.tl function. And then finally, for the last event, I have social shares. So I have a number of icons on my site that you can see here. If we take a look at one of my let's take a look at one of my articles here. I'll just by default anything here, and then down here there are a number of social sharing things. So, you know, did you like it? You can retweet it, you can +1 it for Google Plus, you can like it for Facebook, etc., and it can be shared then to those social sharing sites. I also have up here, I have other social sharing icons, even though these are not for sharing, these are for going to, I have a Google Plus page, I have a LinkedIn page, I have a Facebook page, I have a Twitter page, and then there's the RSS feed for my site. And so these are for following me in other social media rather than sharing this particular article, which are down here. So there's a couple of different things. So here I've got the social shares, and again, if we do it as an event, and I don't actually have that event set up at the moment, but you can just kind of take a look at events in general. And it's just an incremental count. And here, let me just kind of do for the year of 2013, because I haven't had a ton of traffic. But here you can see here, again, just an incremental count for comments. How many times have comments been left on my site? I had 1 in June, 1 in July, 4 in August. And that's all the information that this gets. But you can use this data, again, to correlate against your EVARs and SPROPs. All right, moving right along. So now we get into the EVARs. So these are your custom conversion variables. And again, for the best practice for video tracking, you want to make sure that you have a 3 EVAR set, one for videos, one for content type, and one for media segment. And then again here, just same sstructure of making sure that the developer sets some logic, and there's some rules behind how do you grab the video name, often from the metadata from the video, etc. And then populating these things in that way. And then in some cases here, I do understand the difference between an on-load and an on-click type of thing, or even on hover. So depending on how the site is set up, making sure that they know, please trigger this on load versus on click, that type of thing. All right, getting beyond the videos again. Here I have an EVAR set up that I'd like to have tracking the social shares. And in this particular case, it'll actually would actually populate the report with the social sharing network name. So it would actually tell me if people were clicking on Google Plus versus, and here, if I scroll over, you'll see if they click on Twitter, Google Plus, or Facebook. And then I have another one here that I'm calling social follows. And these names here, these are all, like, you name them what makes the most intuitive sense within your organization. This is what makes sense to me, so this is what I'm calling them. And so for the social follows, those are the icons that I showed you at the top right of all my pages. Again, social network name, and in that case it's Google+, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and RSS feeds. Etc. Blog category is something else that I thought would be a really insightful kind of data to have from my site. I don't currently have this tracked, but if you take a look here, I have all these categories. And it would be interesting to see which category gets the most traffic, with the caveat being that some categories have more articles than others, and so that would obviously play a factor into how much traffic they get, but it would still be interesting to see how much traffic each particular category gets. Is there any particular category that seems to be more popular than others? And are there any articles out there that I'm not tagging to a particular category that could benefit from being part of that category? All right, moving on to the custom traffic, or the SPROP variables. Again, there's going to be 2 best practice variables that you want to set up for videos. Or, to be perfectly honest, in this particular case, there's just one that's the best practice, and that's SPROP1 videos. And that's, basically on load whenever the video is viewed, and just populate the video name. The second one is not necessarily a best practice as much as one that I personally would be interested in knowing, and can be set. It's an optional one, and I'm calling it video stops. And basically, anytime on click of the video module, when if there's a pause or a stop button, anytime that's clicked, that's something I would be interested in, is how many times do people actually stop or pause the video And then you can also, and in this case, you can actually have the prop be unclick when they stop it or pause it. You can call it either way. And then when they click again to play it. And so also seeing like, okay, out of 50 times the video was viewed, 10 times someone stopped it or paused the video, but out of those 10 times, only 5 times did they click play to continue watching. So, you can certainly get some interesting insights from that kind of data, and so that's something I will include when I do upgrade my website. Alright, and then the final ones here is I'm just copying or showing that, I've got the social shares, social follows blog category, and I'm going to want to do the exact same tracking with the custom traffic as I do with the custom conversions. Mainly because even though it's going to be very, very similar data on the onset, but if you're using any kind of correlations and that kind of thing, and there's sessioning involved, there's a number of reasons behind why you would do that with particular data, in terms of being able to get additional insights that you can get by tracking it both as a conversion and as traffic variable, rather than just only one or the other. As I said, I did a tutorial a few weeks ago where I kind of explained a little bit more detail events, EBARs, and SPROPs, and so please go and take a look at that video to get a little bit more insight as to why I would actually want to kind of do this kind of thing. But that's basically it. This is the bottom line, that the document that I would deliver to a developer, and this is the data that they would then use to implement everything. And then one thing that you don't see on this particular PDF, it got cut off. There were a couple additional columns. I actually will use this document as well to go back and do my QA testing and say, okay, when I'm loading this particular page or any particular page, is event 1 firing? Is it firing when the video starts? Is it only firing once? That kind of information is, making sure that each variable is firing and is firing the way I expect it to, and in the area that I expect it to, and in the way I expect it to, that kind of thing. So this also ultimately turns into my QA testing document as well. If you have any questions whatsoever as to any of this that I went over with you today, or want to know more information, or want me to go into in depth into anything that I haven't yet, please leave a comment below. I appreciate all feedback, and please give this video a thumbs up if you found this useful, and if you haven't yet, I would really greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel, and I will continue producing these tutorials for as long as I have material to do tutorials on. Alright, so until next week, thank you, take care, bye-bye.